Happy Monday, everybody. Hope it's the beginning of the week is going great for you guys. My name is Stuart Davis. I run the Flawed Man channel. And tonight we are picking up in the middle of Abraham's story on our walk through the Bible. Um, as the uh, as the title of the channel is, I'm a flawed man. My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. What I'm doing in this series is reading through the Bible, giving kind of a um, just my immediate reactions and thoughts and feelings, and trying to promote this channel to the point where we get a following enough with enough viewers so that we can really start to go through the Bible as um, as a chat and kind of not just get my impressions and my observations, but also yours. I want to hear from what you say. I want to hear about the things that you are things that are going through your head as you read through them. What your thoughts, impressions, and feelings are about that. And I think that from there we can really build something that is impactful. Whether you are a Christian and have been one for a while, whether you're new to Christianity, or whether you're just interested, this can be something that I think you can get a lot out of, because nothing is, or few things are as good as fellowship, and fellowship is a good way to grow your experience and increase your level of understanding, because you're hearing things from different people and folks who, if someone comes to you with an informed thought that they've come out from truly studying and truly contemplating in their heart what something means to them, you might find that their perspective will change yours. Not necessarily to agree with yours or perfectly align with theirs, but change it and make you think twice about maybe how you're interpreting something. Maybe make little adjustments. So we're going to get into chapter 20 of Genesis. So if you're new, if you haven't gotten into the channel yet, if you're just browsing by, this is where we're at. We're still very much in the beginning. We are still very much in Genesis. We have not gotten very far at all, but that's good. This is going to be a long, drawn out process. So, again, if you're coming through and you come through in the chat, leave a comment. Open this up in YouTube. Might be the best way. Like and subscribe the page, and let me know how this video impacted you, and how what this reading and what these words in the Bible meant to you. I will respond. I would love to incorporate what you say as we go forward, and kind of just recap things, because what we just came from was the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is it's a pretty impactful thing. God comes in and destroys two cities because he can't find 10 righteous men. And when he sends Lot out, he literally only finds one righteous man, because Lot is the only man who gets out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and with the help of angels, because everybody else there is corrupt, apparently. But Lot escapes Sodom and Gomorrah before the destruction with his wife and his two daughters. Then his wife turns back to look at the destruction after being specifically told not to, and she turns into a pillar of salt, and not just a resentful, salty, crone of a woman, but an actual pillar of salt. And then they go in. They settle in the mountains, and his daughters decide that they want kids, and the only person there to give them kids is their dad, Lot, and so they get him very drunk, and then very incorrect things happen. And I guess what I kind of wonder is what is going through Lot's head when he realizes, because he doesn't remember any of this happening, but when his daughters do become pregnant and nobody else is around, and they were virgins when they left, how he does the math in his head. I don't know if you ever get back to Lot and understand and finish out, really kind of finish out where his story is, or if it ends there. I guess we'll find out because we'll be reading through here. I can't remember exactly what happens. So we'll move back to Abraham in that case. So Abraham and Abimelech. Now Abraham moved on from there to the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. This is deja vu all over again, right? This is a move that Abraham's already made before. And it didn't really work out all that. I mean, I guess it kind of worked out because Abraham got a bunch of riches. So if you recall, earlier in Abraham's story, he is in Egypt, and he is worried about the Egyptians killing him because Sarah is apparently very beautiful, which, most men would be very proud of, and perhaps Abraham is, but he's also very fearful because he's worried he's going to get killed. I'm uncertain about this here because Abraham is a very faithful man, as far as he's faithful to God. He's faithful to God, and he seems to have a lot of respect and understanding for God's power, but at the same time, he's worried that God's going to let him get killed because people find his wife pretty. I mean, how pretty is Sarah? I mean, how beautiful is she? That this is an overwhelming issue, or maybe this is just a hang-up he has. But everybody's got hang-ups, I guess. Maybe this is his big insecurity that his wife is so overpoweringly beautiful that any man who lays eyes on her is going to kill him. So he's not in Egypt anymore. He's in Gerar. Now, when he was in Egypt, the Egyptian king, the Pharaoh, came out, and he's, after, he was, I guess, hitting on Sarah, and bad things happened to Pharaoh because God struck him with some maladies, and he found out why, and he went out to Abraham and said, "Why did you do this? Why didn't you just say she was your wife?" And Abraham didn't really have a good response. He just said, "I was afraid you were going to kill me." So Pharaoh sent him on his way, and sent him on his way with, all the things that he had given him when he thought that he was Sarah's brother. So now here we are in Gerar, and he's doing the same thing. Maybe I don't understand Abraham in this sense. This is not where I relate to Abraham. Abraham does a lot of things that I consider weird and maybe not good to his character, or not fitting to his character. But also, mind you, Abraham does a lot of things that I consider way above my own character. So think about that when you're interacting with folks around you, I guess. Some folks might let you down in many ways, or not measure up to your own code of ethics in a certain in one facet of life. But you never know when maybe they're exceeding that in another case, where they're much better and beyond you. So where will we go? All right, so Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her. Good for him. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? He did not say to me, 'She is my sister,' or did he not say to me, 'She is my sister'? And didn't she also say, 'He is my brother'? I have done this with a clear conscience and clear hands." Good for Abimelech. He's got some eyes on Sarah, as Abraham thought, but eyes on Sarah, and she seems like she's an unattached woman. So, maybe he's lusting after her, and all of a sudden God comes to him in a dream and says, "You're a dead man." Probably a little unsettling. And when he understands why he's being threatened by God, in a very clear way, he says, "What? I didn't know," which he didn't know. He didn't know. And God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her." Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die. Pretty clear instructions here. I think Abimelech will be very motivated and enthusiastic about doing exactly what God says, because he's being very direct. And credit to Abimelech. Abimelech's not doubting anything here. He is definitely taking all of this very seriously, as he should. Whenever God appears to you in a dream, it's serious. Whenever God appears to you in a dream and says that you're a dead man, it's very serious. Early the next morning, probably before the sun rose, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. And then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should never be done." And Abimelech asked Abraham, "What was your reason for doing this?" Very poignant questions, Abimelech. Very much so, because I would be asking the same questions. I would be a little irritated. And again, it's the same thing that Pharaoh does. You're probably pretty put off, and especially as a king, you're not used to being put in this situation. And this guy has put you in this situation and put you at odds with God. So he's probably very aggravated and very annoyed with Abraham. But at the same time, he's a prophet of God. And obviously he's important enough to God that he is interceding on his behalf very directly and very threateningly. So Abimelech probably has to couch his annoyance and aggravation by just asking why. Just why? Why? Me too, Abraham. Why? Why would you do such a thing? Abraham replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife." Plot thickens. It doesn't say he's lying here, but... "And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, 'This is how you can show me your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother.'" Now, Sarah is at fault for Hagar and having a son and causing all that strife, because that was all her idea. This is all Abraham's idea. So all this is from him. Now, there's a lot of... I'm not understanding the family line here. But it's an early... this is early in humanity's history, so maybe this is okay at this point. Because I know it's not okay later. It's not okay in Leviticus. Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, "My land is before you. Live wherever you like." To Sarah he said, "I am giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you. Before all who are with you, you are completely vindicated." And then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves, so they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all of the women in Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife Sarah. Abimelech's probably very happy to be rid of him, and which is probably why he's sending him on his way with a lot of stuff, just like Pharaoh did. I don't think... You guys, all this time, I was not sharing my screen. Just realized that. Sorry, folks. I'm back. I don't think this is Abraham's way of just wanting more stuff. They don't say he's a very greedy person, but he's very well off. The birth of Isaac. Last episode, we talked about how Sarah laughed at the prophecy of her having a kid within a year, and then God said, "Who are you to be laughing? I'll be back, and I'll see you in a year when you have your kid." Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him, because he's God. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore to him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him, as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have bore him a son in his old age. It's good that Sarah can take that rebuke from God earlier in stride, because she said, God has brought me laughter. And as we know, for those of us who have been blessed with children, or blessed to be around children, especially at a young age, they do bring us laughter. They do so many beautiful things. They do so many things that are just innocent and sweet, and that's great. And maybe this was something that Sarah had a problem with. Maybe her personality was very much compromised because of her inability to conceive children. This is something that many women, as I understand it, because obviously this is not a struggle for me. I'm not a woman, and I have never had trouble conceiving. And me and my wife have got 2 kids that we love very much. But from what as I understand it, when a woman is expecting to start a family and she cannot, it weighs on her self-worth and her value and her ability her identity as a woman. Much like if a man feels like he is not providing or protecting his family, it speaks negatively to them of their identity as a man. Same thing with a woman. And Sarah is 100. Sarah's, I guess, 100 years old, just as Abraham is, and so she's lived these hundreds of years after Abraham's been told by God and promised by God that he is going to have many descendants, and she doesn't feel like she's part of that at all, and she feels like she's running out of time. Now she finally has it, and that might change her perspective greatly, and good for her. Good for her. Creation's a beautiful thing. Creation is a thing that started with God and should bring joy to all of us, because it is in God's nature as a creator, and we are created in His image. So obviously that love reflects for us too as well. So Hagar and Ishmael sent away. So again, reaching back, Hagar is Sarah's servant, who is also married to Abraham. They got married because Sarah could not conceive and she could not give him a kid. So she came up with the idea, not God. She did. She came up with the idea that Hagar bear a child as a surrogate. And she does. And his name is Ishmael. But then, there's drama involved because of just the very nature of that whole arrangement. And we'll see. But Hagar went away, but she came back, and things seemed like they were better. Apparently not by the sound of this. The child grew, Isaac. The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking. And she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly, because it concerned his son. God said to him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." So Abraham's concerned about this. Seems obvious to that. He loves Ishmael. Ishmael's his first son. And Abraham seems like he's being the dad. He's being a dad to him. So obviously he cares greatly for this. But he also knows that this line of descent is coming through Sarah as well. And Ishmael's probably a little irked by the coming of Isaac, because it threatens his place, I guess, and his standing in the family. And he says he's mocking him. He might be ridiculing him, teasing him, or whatever. And Sarah doesn't like it because she's being protective for her kid and maybe not so realistic about the whole thing. But she says they need to go. So Sarah's happy she's got her kid, but that doesn't mean she's treating Hagar and Ishmael any better. And again, Abraham's kind of torn on this because he loves his sons. He loves his sons. But God said that, Isaac is going to be the inheritor of God's plan, but Ishmael's not going to be forgotten either. They're going to be a great nation of his. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He sent them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bowshot away, for she thought, I could not watch the boy die. And as she sat there, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of the Lord called to Hagar from heaven, and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. And while he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. Good for you, Ishmael. And that's probably hard for Abraham to see Ishmael go, because he spent a lot of time with him. I think he's a teenager at this point. And they're going off. And Abraham's a man of means. I don't know why he doesn't send her out there with more than that, but he doesn't really send her out with much. And then they're like dying in the desert, and God has to intercede. So again, Abraham has some really great qualities, and maybe it's because it's not in the story much, but he does some things that just seem really boneheaded. The treaty at Beersheba. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me and the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown to you. Yeah, well, Abimelech's probably worried that Abraham's going to, hold some information back about something, because that hasn't happened before. Abraham said, I swear it. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized. But Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I have not heard about it until only today. So Abraham bought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves? He replied, Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well. So that place was called Beersheba, because the 2 men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. So, apparently he's living peacefully with the Philistines. That does not last forever. Doesn't probably last for Abraham that much. So where are we at? All right, one more. Here we go. Here's the big one. Here is the big one. Abraham tested. Sometime later, God tested Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham! Here I am, and he replied. All right, first off, Abraham tested. What possible need does God have at this point to test Abraham when he already convinced him at 99 years old to cut his foreskin off by himself in a time before anesthesia? What more do you need to know to test this faith? Maybe it was because of that slip up with Abimelech. I don't know. Then God said, Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah, or Moria if you're a Tolkien fan. You can call it Moria. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Full stop. Your one kid, the one son that you love so much because the other one has been sent away. Yeah, I'm going to need you to sacrifice him as a burnt offering. Need a baby barbecue. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said. "But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. This has got to be a tough conversation. Just never something you want to do. And I'm sure Abraham is dragging his feet here. He is the reluctant servant of God at this point because he's been told that he has to sacrifice his one son. And to make matters worse, his son is maybe getting suspicious, maybe getting curious. But this is what I find that's very interesting here, and I didn't realize that until just now when I was reading it. This is always foreshadowing. To me, this has always been foreshadowing for Jesus. But Isaac says, "The fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering. He did provide Isaac. And so I don't know if Abraham's being cute or if he's just being, kind of morose, sullen, or whatever. God will provide it. Trying to talk himself up, trying to convince himself that what God is requesting of him is good and righteous. Because while Abraham is a faithful human being, almost to a fault with God, I can't imagine any man being so full of faith that he can approach the sacrifice of his own son with any enthusiasm. With any enthusiasm. I don't think God would have enthusiasm doing it for us. But who ends up being the lamb in the end? Jesus. And who provides the lamb for Jesus, or God does. God provides Jesus. So this to me is just amazing foreshadowing. When they reached to the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. At some point, his son had to have figured it out. Isaac has to have figured it out by now. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now that I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. Probably in absolute tears of joy that he doesn't have to sacrifice his son and that he's got a ram. So not only does he get his son, but he's also got this nice sheep to sacrifice to God. Because that's what he loves. It is obvious that Abraham enjoys being thankful to God. So you imagine what's going through his head at this point. It's an amazing amount of relief. I cannot really put myself into his shoes and really feel the type of relief that he probably feels at this point, or the love to understand that God is not going to require him to do this, but that he is probably being blessed for this. So Abraham called on that place, "The Lord will provide," and to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on the earth will be blessed. Because you have obeyed me." All nations, not just the Jews, not just not just these folks in Abraham's line, all nations, which is what we see with Jesus. All nations on the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Big deal. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you. I take back all my criticism about your nonsense with telling everybody that your wife is your sister because you're scared, or any of the other kind of just boneheaded things that you do. This act, this simple act from you, Abraham, has given me salvation, and not just for me, because while my salvation is important to me, it's given it to my kids, it's given it to my wife, it's given it to the people I love more than I love myself. Because of you, Abraham, because of you, because you made the right decision, because you were faithful, and because you were, what's the word? Because you did what you were told, and you didn't think about it, and you didn't hesitate, you didn't turn away, you did what you were supposed to do. You did what God asked you to do. What would we do? What would we be as humans if we all were like Abraham? You're probably doing some boneheaded things at the same time. But we would be incredibly blessed. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Sometime later, and we'll close this out here, because this is kind of, I don't know how much this has to do with anything. Sometime later, Abraham was told, "Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nahor. Uz, the firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel." I think I got all those right. I think I got none of those right, probably. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. That's an important note. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham's brother Nahor. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also had sons, Teba, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah, which I probably got all of their names wrong as well. But that will close things out. So, big important stories here. Big important stories, but none as important as 22. Find a more impactful, find a bigger passage in Genesis. Find a better account than what Abraham does in this point. What he does benefits us all. And again, for his faults, Abraham has amazing qualities. Amazing qualities. But he has his faults. You have your faults. I have my faults. We are flawed. We're flawed people. Remember that. That even the man who gave blessing, who set the table for Jesus Christ to eventually be born and die for our sins, had flaws. Had flaws that just made you shake your head. But here he is, a great man who's done great things. You may never do great things in your life, or things that impact the entire world, but you might do great things in somebody's eyes. You might do great things. You might be an impact in some person's life. It might be your kids' lives. It might be a coworker's life. It might be somebody who you don't really know, but sees an act for you and it deeply impacts you. You don't know what it is that you can do, or maybe you can. Maybe you can measure it. but it's a value. It's a value, and it makes you just that much more valuable. You don't have to be this great person. You don't have to be the father of three religions, one of them being the true faith. You don't have to be that. You can strive to be there, to get there. But if you don't make it that way, that doesn't matter, because you did good things along the way. You did things to help your fellow man. You did things to honor God. You did things to be the best that you could be. And I think that's you think when you are the best you can, you're being faithful to God, and you're being loving to God, and that includes how you treat other people. So put value in yourself. This is what I try to tell people: is put value in themselves, put values in themselves. Because a lot of times, because again, speaking a lot of times with Christianity, people new to Christianity, people coming to this faith, a lot of times there's a lack of self-worth there. There's a questioning. There's a feeling of insignificance or lack or just valueless in yourself. There's value in you, and it's worth it, because it's worth everything we're reading about. God puts all this in motion for all of us, not a select few, for all of us. He just wants us to open up and seek Him. He wants us to learn what He's set before us. He wants us to put that in action as best we can, but with the understanding that we're not going to get it right all the time. We might not get it right most of the time, but as a result, sends Jesus. So it's okay. It's okay. Get back up and get back to doing it. Do your best. Love yourself. Love God. Love God first. Love yourself. Love the people around you. Be the best you can be. Do things that you would do as somebody who loves God. With that said, that'll close out tonight. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all use this as a way to find value. I hope you get something out of this. Hope you learned exactly how important Abraham is. When we talk about Abrahamic religions, you really understand the weight of that, of who Abraham is and what he's done. I think this ending part with what God tells Abraham at the end is puts that all kind of sets all that up. Anyways, y'all have a good evening, have a good week, and we'll have some more videos before Thanksgiving.